All right, good evening, everyone. I will ask everyone to please silence cell phones and other electronic devices and remind council that our procedure bylaw prescribes the use of electronics during council meetings. It is 6:31 p.m. I'll call this special council meeting to order. And as always, I will begin with this formal territorial acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe, who are the original stewards of this land. We honor their enduring connection to this territory, their contributions to our community, and we express our gratitude for the opportunity to work and meet here. As we discuss our budget and future plans, let us commit to fostering positive relations with Indigenous communities, respecting our treaty rights, and honoring our combined heritage. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that the November 24th, 2025 special council meeting agenda be approved as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Members of council, have you any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. And there are none noted. The topic of today's special council meeting is to discuss the 2026 mayor's budget. This session is to provide residents an opportunity to share feedback, ask questions, and discuss priorities with council. Members of the public will have the opportunity to provide comments specifically on the budget item outlined in the agenda that was presented at the mayor's budget presentation that was presented at the November 17th council meeting. We move first into delegations and presentations. We have a presentation from the CAO of the Lower Trent Conservation Authority, CAO Bateman. I will turn the floor over to you, and the CAO will need a microphone or nobody will hear her. Nobody in YouTube land will hear you.
Thank you.
CAO Bateman.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ostrander, and thank you very much, everyone, for the invitation to speak about our draft budget in front of council this evening. This is an opportunity under our consultation for your council, and my board members who are here to bring back any comments to our board of directors at our December 11th meeting. Excuse me. So I'm going to go through an outline. And do we have a slide? Yeah, thank you. It doesn't want to play. Here we go. Great. Second slide, thanks. I'm going to outline our budget subcommittee, some facts about our budget, our programs, the draft 2026 budget, and municipal levy and the next steps. Next slide, please. So our subcommittee was made up of our vice chair, Sherry Hamilton from Cranby Township, and two of your council members, Bobby Wright and Jeff Wheeldon, and two staff members, of course, myself and the corporate services manager. So the budget subcommittee met 4 times from July to September, and they went through a line-by-line investigation of the various budget versions. The budget version that we're referring to tonight is version 3. So it's not like we just went with the first version. And some facts about our budget itself is the Conservation Authority, of course, is a service organization. We have a spectrum of services, and I'll go through the programs in a bit, that requires a range of skills, knowledge, and expertise to be successful. Staffing is about 70% of our budget, and our general operation and capital is about 30% of our budget. 2 slides, please. So we used a consumer price index of 2% average, and that's a August to July calculation that we use. We have our cost of living at 2% as well. We've estimated our insurance costs will go up about 10%. We will have, we've estimated 5% increase in property taxes. We're not anticipating a change in the number of staff from all programs paid by municipal funding, and our merits this year are affecting about 9 staff members and are about $32,000. So next slide outlines most of our programs, or many of our programs, which you're all familiar with. And the first, I'm sorry, most of the programs here shown are of our mandated Category 1 programs, and then we have on the second column our Category 2 and 3 programs, including everything from risk management official to youth education stewardship. The Bay of Quinte Remedial Action Plan is included there. It's one of our large programs, but that is not a municipally levied program. It is funded by the federal and provincial governments. Okay, so I made a slide this year of some of the program highlights that actually happened in Brighton specifically. So our staff were at the Brighton Public Library for education and outreach in January and August. We've been to at least one public school. I'm sure there's more. The Brighton Garden Club, the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board had an environmental symposium in June, and that was held at Goodrich Loomis. And I'm sorry. So these highlights show the many activities and events that were undertaken within the watershed, specifically in Brighton. Our other 6 municipalities are being highlighted in their presentations as well. And our annual events are, of course, open to the wider watershed region and beyond, including our huge Tri-County Children's Water Festival. And so a lot of our activities, not all of them, but Farewell to Frost and Summerfest and the Environmental Symposium this year were all held at Goodrich Loomis, which you share with Crammy. And the next slide is a photos of some of our events. All right, let's get into the budget. This proposed budget is the overall budget, and it illustrates our operating capital and our entire budget. As you can see from the bottom right-hand corner, the increase in the budget itself is only 3%. Unfortunately, that is not what we're asking for in the levy increase. Oh, thank you, Jeff. So if we go to the next slide, it shows our revenues. And in that slide, you can see that some of our revenues have decreased. We're trying to show realistic numbers for our fees and charges that we're getting for our regulations and planning department. So that's gone down. And I'll talk about that in the next slide. We have a few other programs that have gone down. And we're losing money in some of our administered programs because some of them are winding down. But the staff levels are not winding down. And the next slide. So our levy is increasing beyond the 3%. It's based on several factors, including no increase in revenue from the province since they cut us in 2018. And they've decreased our decrease in revenues for planning regulations is due to a provincial freeze on our fees. And this is year 3 of the freeze. So that really cuts down our opportunity to pay for the program. We would love if the program would pay for itself, but we're nowhere near that. And we're trying to rationalize and look at our program costs and recoup those figures so that our municipalities won't have to pay for it. However, with the fee freeze, it's been impossible to get to that point. We are trying to identify surplus funds that are available, including interest income, and we did delay in filling one vacancy. So we are using surplus and reserves to decrease the overall budget. And the next slide shows the traditional municipal Category 1 funding. So we're asking for an increase to all our municipalities of $155,872 overall. And the next one, please. Outlines that Brighton is proportioned according to the calculations that are supplied to us by the M&R of from 238.9 to 266 for this year. And the next, I wanted to show what kind of value you get for your dollar. So this is, you're going to see some slides about different services that we provide. Our inquiry service it's a free service that we offer so that people can fill in an e-form, and it used to be by phone, which took up a lot of time. So we have an e-form now, and people can make general inquiries, and we get back to them and let them know right away whether they need to put in a permit. So these are pre-permit numbers. So people call, or sorry, they put in their form, and then we determine whether they need a permit. And if they don't, then they're free to go on their way. Otherwise, we advise them to put in a permit application form or let them know if there's anything else that they need to do in accordance with that. Our biggest funders in order are Queenie West, and then Trent Hills and Brighton. So you can see that some of our bigger funder, you're tied with Trent Hills, and we have a lot more inquiries from Trent Hills, which is bizarre, but. The next slide shows just last year's inquiries. So you can see that you're well entrenched in the numbers there. And the next one is the actual permit numbers. So the bright orange line is Brighton. Sorry, that's Crammy. It's Crammy, or gray. That's not a good one. I'm sorry, I didn't highlight the right line. So you are a third in line of actual permit numbers. So it goes blue, yellow, gray. So I apologize for that. And the next slide shows our enforcement files. And again, I highlighted Grammy. I apologize. And Brighton is gray. So you are not quite as high on our enforcement files, which is great. But if in 2023, you're fourth. But you're never at the top of our enforcement files, which is a good place to be. And next slide, please. So overall, the category 1 levy increase to Brighton is proposed at $27,122. We have an increase in category 2 programs, which are our agreement program of $301, and a decrease in category 3 programs of $680. So we're proposing a total budget increase of $26,743. If you look at our current value assessment, which everybody wants to know about, it's about $17.40 per 100,000 of assessment, or $23.81 per person, or $53 per household. And so next steps are for us to receive comments from our municipal partners. I'm still doing municipal presentations. You're my second last one. I have one tomorrow morning. And then I'll bring all the comments back to the board for discussion on December 11th. And then the board will either direct staff to make changes or approve this draft budget.
Thank you. Pardon me. Thank you, CAO Bateman. Questions for the CAO? Apparently I've caught whatever you have. So I'm going to ask one about the elephant in the room here.
I know you are.
We have a proposal, which is likely to be more than a proposal, from our friends at the province to significantly consolidate conservation authorities across Ontario from the current number of
36
to 7.
7.
That was the most recent number I saw today.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll see if that goes forward. The Lower Trent Conservation Authority amalgamate with, looks like, six others. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, what happens over the course of the next year as the province makes this decision? And I only ask that I'm assuming that the province is going to pull the rug out from under conservation authorities and move forward with this. That's my assumption. Just given what we've seen from this current government and the momentum, and certainly what we've seen with regard to conservation authorities since this government got elected 7 years ago.
Yes, I would say that's a fair assumption. I just thought back to when I started working at Lower Trent, when I moved from my former CA. I came and visited Brighton Council, and your question at the time was, what is the government doing and how are things going to change? Knowing full well there were changes coming. And there's been changes every year since then, and some very dramatic. But we never lost sight of our operational delivery and what we stood for. So right now, the consolidation is going to change things. I and we have apparently, we haven't seen a framework yet. What you know is what I know. There hasn't been a lot of extra detail. I don't believe that, probably shouldn't say this, but it's going to happen. I don't believe when the minister said there'll be no job losses, that's not something that a consolidation would result in, having the same number of people across the province working for CAs. But having said that, right now the Conservation Authorities Act changes are probably going to receive royal assent in the next little while. And the development of this agency will dictate how things move forward. I don't think they're going to wait to create the agency. I think as soon as it's passed, it will start. My fear is that with the consolidation of 7 CAs into one, just to look at our own, that there's going to be a loss of municipal representation. We have no idea what the formula will be for a board representing 7 conservation authorities and 47 municipalities. That's what we're looking at. And it's interesting because if you look at because currently it's done by population number. And that can't fly because we can't have, I think it would be 85 members, something like that. So I don't know how they're going to do it. And I have an idea of things that could make things go a little smoother, like if a regional group of municipalities would elect 1 member to the board, the Eastern Lake Ontario board, then you'd have representation that way. But if they do it by population, you're not likely, our smaller CAs are not likely have our smaller municipalities not likely have representation, because we're dealing with everybody from Ajax and Oshawa, Port Hope, Peterborough, Belleville, and Quinte West would probably have the biggest populations from what I can see. And places like Crow Valley would have almost none. And so I wish I had the answers and knew how it was going to play out, but I don't.
I'd only be speculating, but I wonder if they're going to deal representation as they do with the public health units from the upper tiers rather than from the lower tiers. I'm just looking at the map. It looks like there's some alignment with the counties.
There could be county representation, but that would be and it would be a drastic change for what we have now. And then we have single tiers because Belleville and Quinte West, and they're not represented.
So Belleville and Quinte West are not single tiers, they're separated municipalities within a county system. Just
exactly. So it's going to be an interesting setup. So
it begs the question for me, and I'm sure you're being asked this at other municipalities, why aren't we then looking at sort of freezing what we have and sort of dealing operationally with the ramifications of that? And I know you've thought about that. I've had that conversation with at least one of the members around this table, and I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you so that the public knows the answer.
Okay, so we are told that we will continue our operations until at least the end of next year. So that's why the budget is as it is. We don't see, the province has said that operations at the CA, at each CA, will not change until at least after the election in October next year, the municipal election. And that's going to be difficult because if we lose our board, there's going to be an operational challenge there. So and I believe they wanted to have the consolidations in place by spring of 2027. So there's going to be a huge transition in that, 4 to 5 month period. I would love to see the framework.
I think we're all waiting for it. I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate the work that the Conservation Authority does for Brighton as well. Questions or comments from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, CAO Bateman. Being on the budget subcommittee again this year was a lot like last year. The pressures remain the same. The fees remain the same because they're frozen still. And there's still the sense that we're coming from behind, that funding that used to come from the province, we often talk about things being downloaded, costs being downloaded to municipalities because the province stops paying for them, but we're still responsible for them. In this case, not all municipalities have been willing to make up the difference. And so every year at budget time at the Conservation Authority, we start with a number, and I like to start with, what does it take to make this run smoothly? And then we work backwards from there to try and align it with what other people are comfortable with. And we started at, I want to say, 26% increase this year.
Close to.
Just in part because we've been deferring a lot of costs, in part because we did not want to rely on surplus, hopeful surplus and reserve funds in order to pay staff salaries. And yet year after year, we have made that decision to do so, knowing that we just couldn't pass the budget otherwise. So that's the way it's been at the Conservation Authority. And this year was no different. Now with the looming question, as Mayor Ostrander pointed out, of, well, if everything is coming down next year, what's going to happen here? Why should we pay for this? I've heard that from other people in the region as well. Which concerns me because we still have a job to do, legislated job to do. We still have staff who are worth their pay. And so, yeah, none of those things should change. And as it is, we are scraping bone. There is no fat to cut here. We might even be losing some meat at this level. So I'm not happy with this budget, but it's the best we could do.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wright.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just some comments from my side of the table. Experiencing everything that you've said is absolutely true. It's been, putting this budget together has been a very frustrating thing because we have some seats at the table that are just hardcore set at not anteing up. And it's been a very frustrating thing to whittle this down, knowing that we're losing meat off the bone, as Jeff commented. And with these looming changes, it's all the more frustrating because we don't have any upcoming framework. We were all on a call where we were hopeful to get more information, and it was the most controlled format possible. All of our video links were shut down, so we were all black screen. The questions were posed through the chat, and they were cherry picked as to what they wanted to answer, and the answers were no answers at all. So it was almost a waste of time in many ways. It's been very astonishing working on a board where, you know, we are mandated to do very fundamental needed things for our communities. But we don't have the funding to get it done, and knowing that we're just going to be picked apart in the next year. So there, you know, we still have another year to get through, and we're going to get through it. But we very much need this budget to pass to get there.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Thank you very much. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Just a question, Rhonda, or to those representatives from here. You were saying that some of the other municipalities are a hard set on kind of increasing any kind of budget. What happens if they don't? Does that fall back on the rest of us then who support this budget? So
No, we have a weighted vote, again, done by population. If it loses, the board has to go back to staff and find more cuts.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, CEO Bateman.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council received the presentation from Rhonda Bateman, CAO, Lower Trent Conservation, regarding the LTC 2026 draft budget. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. There's someone waiting to come in. They're gone now, it looks like, so. They were there briefly. They were there and then I looked down and they're gone, but. Might have been. That brings us to the public meeting portion of this evening's meeting. This is with regard to community input to ensure the budget reflects local needs and values. Before I read the motion to proceed into the public meeting, I'll just remind council and the public that there will be a report coming to council for the first meeting in December that details ASE revenues and where this budget designates about half of those funds. Also, that the 1.5% of the 2025 levy has been budgeted for grants and aid, and that council's decisions around those funding allocations will not change the budget as presented. So we can deal with that anytime we want, but those monies have been placed in the budget for 2026. And I will also note that staff have provided reports to council on the current reserve levels and on rolling stock inventory as requested at last Monday's meeting. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council move into the public meeting November 24th, 2025 at 6:59 p.m. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And is there anyone in the gallery who wishes to speak to the 2026 budget? Please step forward. Thanks, Paul. Jackie, I'll get you to state your name for the record, please.
Yes, Jackie Steele. I'm here on behalf of the Willow Point Property Owners Limited. We live on a private road, Willow Point Road, and we would like to be considered for some funding, either through a grant or direct assistance for the remediation of Willow Point Road. I have a statement I'd like to read, if that's okay. A municipality's primary responsibility to its citizens is to provide essential local services and ensure the health, safety, and well-being of the community. This includes managing infrastructure like roads and water, providing public services such as police, fire, and waste collection, and fostering social and economic development. As the level of government closest to the people, municipalities hear directly from their residents. They must be attentive and responsive to their needs. The municipality of Brighton is both an urban and a rural community. Several roads within the municipality access waterfront properties. Approximately 12 roads, I'm told, are described as private roads within the municipality. And as seasonal dwellings are converted to year-round homes and land transfers occur to provide more permanent housing, there can be a demand for the municipality to upgrade and or assume some of these roads to benefit the community. Private roads or laneways are the principal means of access for a large number of waterfront property owners. Municipalities rely primarily on property taxes to generate the revenues needed to conduct business. From the Association of Municipalities website, it states that Ontarians currently pay the second highest property taxes in the country at $2,200 per capita. Since MPAC implemented market value assessment, the shoreline tax base often pays a significantly larger portion of taxes as compared to non-shoreline residents. In addition, some of these residents have no municipal services such as water, sewage, and road maintenance, which puts an additional burden on rural residents. There are approximately 12 private roads in the municipality. Willow Point Road is one of the most populous, having 26 dwellings, which house approximately 57 residents, most of whom are seniors. The laneway from County Road 64 to access the first dwelling is approximately 900 meters. While the Willow Point Property Owners Road Association has been diligent in replacing gravel, conducting snow removal, and some surface grading over the last few decades, the current condition of the laneway is in desperate need of major remediation to ensure safe passage for residents and access for emergency vehicles. The residents simply cannot afford to bear this cost. Section 23 of the Municipal Act states that a municipality may enter into an agreement with any person to construct, maintain, and operate a private road. It is respectfully requested that Council include in the 2026 budget a cost-benefit analysis for upgrading Willow Point Road to better serve its residents. The municipality may then either elect to assume the 900 meters of the laneway to the stop sign or continue to leave it as a private road for the residents to maintain once it has been remediated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I wouldn't normally do that to a citizen. Go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mrs. Steele. So the property owners are looking only to have the 900 meters remediated, not the rest of the laneway.
That's correct, yes. The situation has got to the point where we need ditching, tree removal, insertion of a new culvert. The roadway needs to be, I'm not being very technical here, but dug down to remove all the potholes, crowned and resurfaced. And we did get a quote for that from a company outside Brighton, and the initial quote was $59,000 to do that work. As a matter of interest, until 2003, the municipality was assisting the residents of Willow Point Road with grading, for which the Road Association used to pay a fee of $150 every time the road was graded. And I don't know if that included gravel, the provision of gravel. And I'm not really sure why that stopped, but according to the records that we have, that was the last time it was done by the municipality.
Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. One more question. Mrs. Steele, I believe your association applied for grant and aid last year or something for some cost sharing and fixing. Did that happen? And how much was that?
Yes, we were able to apply for a grant from the private road fund. The criteria was that whatever we spent, we could recoup 50% up to a maximum of $5,000. And we received something in the region of $2,900, which helped us with our snow removal service and gravel.
Thank you. Go ahead.
May I ask a question to staff?
Sure.
Do we have any money in a private road fund?
Mr. Treasurer, do you know the answer to that question? No, the treasurer's computer is not behaving.
Yeah.
Just FYI, everybody.
I will patiently wait for that. That can come via an email or something this week. I'm good.
Thank you for that.
Just one last comment.
Yeah.
I've got a copy of the proposed budget for 2026, and I noticed under special mayoral directives, there is provision for road resurfacing and maintenance plans for urban roads 3.1 kilometers and rural roads 6.2 kilometers. I realize that we don't have a municipal road. We are just looking for some assistance to get us to the point where we would have a decent surface to keep in good order. I have several people from Willow Point Road here. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything.
Thank you, Mrs. Steele. Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Mrs. Steele, sorry, if you, I'm coming back, I'm not done yet.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I was just wondering, how is this stuff normally handled in the past? Like, how do you manage bits of the property that are communal, like your road? Is it done by like a condo fee? Is that normally how things are handled?
So we have an annual meeting every year, every summer, and we set the road dues. Every household is required to pay. This year it was $300. The maintenance of the road. The unfortunate thing is that that really doesn't even cover snow removal and gravel. And the road has got to the situation now where it needs culverts, drainage, better road surface and crowning. And in fact, Dan Blatensky was very kind and came down to offer his advice. And he recommended that it go back to being a gravel road. So we just need to get to that point where we can maintain it.
Okay, and that annual meeting, is it overseen by like an official board, or is it just community members that get together?
No, we have elections. I'm the secretary of the Road Association. We have a president and a treasurer who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. And the residents are all invited to make their comments known, and we vote on what the road dues will be for the year.
Okay. One more question. And that $300, that was like a one-shot deal, or is that a monthly fee that happens?
That's an annual fee per household.
Per household, $300. Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. Anyone else? We'll try again. Thank you, Mrs. Steele. Is there anyone else in the gallery who has any comment or question with regard to the 2026 proposed budget?
Please.
That's why you're here.
My name is Janice Zarath. I'm the president of the Brighton Computer Club, and I understand, I know fully well that my request is not directly affecting your budget proposals for the coming year, because I already did make out a request for a grant application, but it was extremely difficult to fill out everything that the club does and the requests necessary to continue functioning, because we actually supply, I think, anyways, a valuable service to mostly seniors, because we have our meetings during the day. So 9:30 until 11:30 at the community hall, which is an excellent arrangement, given that it supplies the projection. Also, we have the internet supplying, and usually it's working really well. But we have 2 laptops that belong to the computer club, which are 10 years and older. And you probably have all had that problem of upgrading to Windows 11 and being told, no way, it's old, can't do it. So we're right now dealing with that problem of trying to buy, hopefully even just use laptop to get the proper Windows 11. We've had, and according to the website, the Canadian government says there were victims, 23,113 victims of hackers and sham. And so what we've been doing successfully is to prevent our seniors from being victims of that sort of arrangement. We're constantly reminding seniors mostly, but some younger ones who have those mornings off. We give 9 meetings a year, and that includes even the goodies, tea, coffee, and whatever. So they pay $30 for the whole year, but that includes the refreshments as well as the knowledge they gain through our presentations. So I think given that during the 23 years we've been in operation, this is just my attempt at gaining a few extra ears to hear that this is ongoing in Brighton, has been for 23 years. Started off on a small shop on Main Street, then to the Legion. And we outgrew that. We had about 150 members attending, so that was too small. And so however, COVID dropped our numbers down drastically. So we're struggling now to regain some of our members. If we have 60 members, that will pay for any new equipment. But we just finished having to buy equipment to project. It's rather like Zoom. So we project the meetings through Google Meets, sort of like Zoom. And we've only just started doing that. So we only had 4 members tap into that. And so they get all our information through online. And so this is part of the service that we've been trying to also keep up to date ourselves with the technology and the devices. And so if we can just have that okay to go ahead, that we've got some money coming in through this grant application to buy even a used laptop and possibly a used iPad, because most of our seniors now are starting to buy the Apple products. So just so you understand that this is going on at the community hall. We, like I said, 9 meetings a year, but we also communicate online with our members whenever they have a question. We've visited their homes. I just recently set up somebody's desktop computer printer scanner. We do this free. We're all volunteers. We don't accept any money. We just pay the woman to come in and serve the coffee, tea, and cookies. But we're volunteers, but we do have to pay for the hall rental, which just went up in price recently, and I've already overstayed my 2 minutes. Thank you.
Just in case members have questions, but thank you for that. As I noted, I don't know if we'll get to grants and aid this evening or not, but at some point we'll be discussing the allocation of those funds. So thank you for your information. Members of council, any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I will note that Councillor Butwell is attending. She is by Zoom. She is noted as M. Ann on the screen, and apparently her camera is not working. So if she needs to speak, she will put up her virtual hand and we will acknowledge her then. And Councillor Butwell, I will endeavor to keep my eye on the screen for that purpose. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to make a comment on the 2026 proposed budget? And on Zoom, we only have Councillor Butwell and Manager Smith, right? Yeah, okay. So no quote public members. Okay. One more chance. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council move out of the November 24th, 2025 public meeting at 7:16 PM, and that the comments submitted be received as information. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. That brings us to the portion of the meeting where members of council may propose amendments to the budget. I do have one in front of me. I don't know if there are any others being considered. But I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that council amends the mayor's proposed 2026 operating budget as follows. Add an allocation for implementing recommendations from the Brighton Homelessness Task Force of $50,000. And this amendment supports public safety and community well-being. Councillor Wheeldon, this is your motion.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The Brighton Homelessness Task Force was charged with producing a report with recommendations for council by spring. I do hope to have that done and presented to the task force at our next meeting on December 9th. And it will have recommendations that, if implemented, will cost money. And so rather than trying to pull from reserves or move money around, I thought it would be wise to just have something in the pot for implementation of that plan. It's a round number because I don't know what these things will cost, but the report will have recommendations.
Thank you for that. This would be levy funding, I'm assuming, because you don't want to pull it from reserves. Thank you. Councillor Bradley, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Mayor. 50,000 seems like a lot of money, Councillor Wheeldon. I'm wondering if, because we're not going to pass the budget this evening, correct? We're just going to bring some amendments, hopefully, and see where it goes for December at some point. I'd like to see some hard numbers before I kind of think that we throw $50,000 at it. I find it once again, it comes down to downloading, right? Like whether it's the county, whether it's the province, the municipality cannot afford to look after everything and everybody. So I'm willing to wait to hear your report or the report from your task force before I would kind of consider these kind of dollars.
Thanks for that. I'll turn the floor over to Councillor Wheeldon. I do have a comment around downloading as well. Go ahead.
Thank you. On the subject of downloading, you are correct. Something that has come to my attention in the past week is that the county's policy of having a 1% levy dedicated to housing was sacrificed this year in order to keep their levy down to 3.77%. And so it does strike me that that underscores the importance of addressing homelessness. If we don't pay for housing, we pay for homelessness. I can outline for you what the recommendations from this report will be. I don't know how much they will cost, but one of the key recommendations will be to develop an implementation plan for the community safety and well-being plan. It was written at a county level, and it's very kind of high level about how to support community, the community looking out for each other and those kinds of things. The fact that we have this task force here at the lower tier level trying to figure out how to do exactly that suggests that the county level plan wasn't really capable of reaching the grassroots level that we're trying to engage with our task force here. But the principles are there. The principles of community safety and well-being being a function of a healthy community that has volunteers, that has an active business community, that has neighbors who look out for each other. And so as we are producing recommendations and goals from this task force on the basis of finding the gaps between us and finding out how we can better support each other, it struck me that perhaps the best way that the municipality might facilitate that among our churches and our volunteer groups and our volunteer institutions is to play sort of a convening, facilitating role And so the recommendation will be that there's a plan for that. Now, the last time that I twisted your arm to get us a new plan was the sustainability plan, and we budgeted $100,000. CAO has talked me down to 50 already. And I don't know exactly what it would cost. The reality is that Loyalist College Center for Healthy Communities gets grant funding to produce these exact studies. And so it's possible that we wouldn't have to pay for it, but if we don't have the money, then we can't pay for it. So I suggested it come from the levy. If there is money in reserves for that and that's a better place, then that's fine. I just want to make sure that we don't wrap up this task force and say, well, I'm glad we all talked about it for 8 months, but we can't do anything because there's no money. That's my only point. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't want to steal anything that you might want to say. Are there already dollars allocated for the task force for this particular, or is this all just you have nothing, you have no dollars in the budget or on any committee level at all for this?
Not for 2026, and I don't think even any was allocated for when we initiated the task force. I think it was intended that we would get around and have conversations and prepare a report, so there wouldn't be that much cost involved. Yeah. So my comments are, healthcare, housing, homelessness, addiction, mental health. These are all concerns that ought to be and are provincial responsibilities. I know this because the British North America Act, Canada's first constitution, our original constitution, sandwiches us as local governments somewhere between saloons and hospitals, literally, in the constitution. That said, we had a program that was helping protect the public on Elizabeth Street while also generating significant revenues. And had we been able to keep that automated speed enforcement system going, we'd have enough money to open 3 homeless shelters in Brighton by the end of 2028. But that, of course, is water under the bridge. We know that revenue has gone by the wayside. I'm also aware that we have a responsibility, at least moral, to take care of those in our community who are, for whatever reason, unable to take care of themselves. And so I am not without compassion, empathy, sympathy with regard to this issue and concern. And to repeat the words of Bill Smith, the manager of homelessness and housing, or whatever his title is, at the county, he wishes that every community had a homelessness task force doing the work that Brighton is doing, because it would mean that we were all at least thinking about this and wrapping our heads around it for this purpose. I don't know what's in the report, Councillor Wheeldon. I won't know until it's shared with the committee, or maybe I'll get a sneak peek. I don't know. But right now, today, sitting here, I don't know what's in that report. And I wonder if you could, we know the committee hasn't accepted the report or had an opportunity to really review the report. You had asked for input. That's the last my recollection is. What are you proposing in your report that might cost significant enough dollars for us to budget $50,000? Just so we can wrap our heads around where this money might go.
Sure, I appreciate that. The main thing that would be a cost is the consultant cost of writing a plan. I don't know the actual cost of the community safety and well-being plan at Northumberland County, but I was on the team that wrote it and I got paid. So I know that those things can cost a fair amount. I also know, as I mentioned, that the Center for Healthy Communities at Loyalist College they're currently writing community safety and well-being plans for Quinte West and Prince Edward County. And so I know that that's in their wheelhouse and that they do have grant funding available to them for most of their projects. And so I expect that this could be done for free or nearly free. And I think that's the only cost that I want to make sure is covered by this. The other recommendations of the report are going to be things like recommending that the municipality endeavor to always keep public bathrooms open. And I know sometimes they go down and we get them back open as soon as we can. And I'd like to make sure that we continue to do that. As just one example of a service that the municipality already offers, but that has particular benefit for residents who are experiencing homelessness. So a lot of the things that are going to be in the report are going to be at that level of just through operations budgets, making sure that we are keeping up with those types of services. But the only extra cost, I would say, that doesn't already fall under some other line item is this plan. If we wanted to dedicate a lesser amount with the hope that there's a grant, I would be fine with that. But again, I would just, I think we would all feel a little bit silly if at the end of the day, there was just no money for this. If we want to do a good job at supporting our residents who are experiencing homelessness, but also supporting the residents who are already volunteering their time and resources to serve those residents, to serve their neighbors. I think that, my recommendation in the report is going to be that this is the way that we can help at the lower tier level without duplicating services from the county, without having to beg the province for more money. We can just play that facilitating role, but we need to make sure we think carefully about how to do that, lest we find ourselves in the situation where we've actually discouraged our volunteer organizations from stepping up or somehow taken on their mandate through not being clear about who's doing what as we try and facilitate better collaboration. Does that make sense?
It does. And thank you. And I don't want to prosecute what will or will not be in the report. I just want to, tonight, I want to focus on the $50,000 or whatever amount we may or may not allocate for the 2026 budget. And then I was about to prosecute it. So I'm gonna stop now and just open the floor to members of council on the motion before us, which is to allocate $50,000 for the implementation of recommendations from the Brighton Homelessness Task Force. Sorry, I'm trying to decipher BHTF. Further comment?
I do have, I'm going to make, and maybe this is going to sound like your idea of prosecuting as well. Without sounding like I'm cold-hearted, this is nothing to do about caring what's in the community. Where am I going to go? Where's it going this? So if there's already a couple of plans out there, one being in the county and we're part of the county, why can't we take some of their plan? Why can't we look at that? My second question is, and this comes to a comment that you opened up regarding public bathrooms and things. I would then like to speak or have a report or a one pager from our Parks and Rec manager as to the cost that we have spent this year on the vandalism in our local public bathrooms because of keeping them open for things like this, because I'm thinking that's a significant cost as well.
Could very well be. You don't know the answer. So the community wellbeing plan touches on this stuff, but does not get into the operational aspects of how do we make sure, someone sleeping rough is receiving appropriate allocation of services and resources from the local churches, as an example. Because I think what we saw was that there were 2 or 3 people in the community receiving all the resources, and there was at least 1 person receiving none. And so how do we then make sure that if there are these resources available, that in fact they're being distributed reasonably with a reasonable level of equity? And so, I'm going to prosecute it. So I'm now going to take a different tack. I think government does these things poorly, often poorly. And we used to live in a world where the churches did them very well. Now we know that those organizations tend to be lesser and lesser and therefore not as available to provide these services to the community. But one wonders if that isn't because government has taken more and more of the responsibility over and then spread that, theoretically spread the value, the cost over a larger number of people. And then you question whether or not those people really want to engage in that. So I mean, just there's so much to unpack when government takes on this kind of a role. And I don't want to be that level of, or that government that takes on a role and then does it poorly. So I want to make sure whatever we're doing, we are providing that resource to the charitable sector to get those jobs done that they do so incredibly well, and that we're just a background resource for that purpose. We're not the boots on the ground, because they are the boots on the ground doing the job so well for these people that find themselves living rough. Go ahead.
100%. Everything you said, we're vibing. I like that. I can tell you what's already included in the report is a section on the social return on investment for churches and charities and food banks and things like that, and comparing that to the high cost of inadequate funding from the province and federal government. So what the report is so far saying is that our volunteers are a significant portion of the benefit that our community, and especially those who are most needy in our community, receive, but they are unrecognized. And so what I want to do with this report is not to suggest that we in any way take over anything, but in fact to make sure through this implementation plan of community safety and well-being plan that we are not inadvertently doing that. That is the goal of this kind of plan, because the principles of community safety and well-being are things like prevention of homelessness and prevention of crime, both of which happen through having an engaged community with a healthy business community and healthy institutions where residents look out for each other and prevent those things from happening in the first place. But being situated at the county level, it is kind of a top-down kind of plan. The groups that it brings together to try and address those things are all government agencies at the county level. Whereas the groups that came to our task force table are, the biggest agency at our table is the library and the DBIA. And so it's at that grassroots community level that a lot of the care that is needed is actually happening. And part of the movement of asset-based community development is actually deinstitutionalizing this kind of care, because we recognize that government cannot do the same thing that community, as Mayor Ostrander said, that churches used to do. And I completely agree that when governments took over and created a welfare state, in many ways, what we did was institutionalized and created, we took the care that people received in a close community, like a church community, and we said, this is the baseline for all Canadians, which is a wonderful thing. But in many ways, I think that has taken away some of the raison d'etre of all of these institutions, these community groups. And so we do see that churches are in decline and service clubs are in decline, and volunteerism in general is in decline. Charitable donations are in decline. And I don't think I want to live in a community where volunteerism as a concept dies out. But especially as we see more and more need in the community at this street level, we want to say, okay, how do we support that volunteerism and how do we coordinate that? So not only so that it can be distributed somewhat equitably, but also so that we as a government are not stepping on people's toes, but also so that maybe we are giving people a hand. Because we talk at the budget table about how it is better for us to support the churches who are running cemeteries than it is for us to take it on ourselves. And our grants and aid budget is largely about seeing the good work that's happening in the community and saying, we want to empower that so that they can do better work. And in many ways, that's an extension of the mentality that we bring when we ask our staff, what does it take for you to do a good job? Let's make sure you have enough resources to do that. The return on investment for food banks is something like $10 of return compared to every dollar spent. And so every donation into a group like that is priceless from a municipal budget perspective. And so wanting to make sure that we are supporting these groups that are otherwise largely disconnected from each other. I know I talked to Pastor Glenn and he said when they give someone a night at a motel or a food card or something like that, that they touch base with the other clergy in town to say, hey, we just had this interaction with this person. Have you met this person yet? You might meet them soon. Aside from that, our organizations are largely not even aware of each other. You know, there are people who come to Supper's Ready and don't know that there's a food bank in town, and vice versa. And we don't always know to tell each other about that. And so, you know, if we can find a way as a municipality to say to all of these different groups that are doing good work, we want to support you, but we're not taking this over. We're not going, wellness is not a service a municipality can provide. Community is something that we have to do for each other. But if I see you doing something and you need a hand doing it, I want to make sure you have that support. I think we might be able to extend the longevity of these kinds of organizations and services that people are providing. And hopefully reverse that trend of voluntarism and donations being on the decline, because in the last decade, they've almost halved. Sorry, long answer to a short question.
You got one of those things right anyway. And there's certainly one thing we heard during the grants and aid presentations last week was every single one of, well, I think every single one of them got up and said we could use some more volunteers, every single one. And, 20 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. They would have been overwhelmed with the number of people. They would have been turning people away, and embarrassingly turning people away, because they would love to be able to use them, but they don't have the capacity. They didn't at that time have the capacity to use all their volunteers. That's not the story today. We're less and less. And certainly I think the pandemic hit hard for people willing to go out and do those things too. So we need to figure out how to dig deep and bring community back. And I think that's part of what we're talking about today. Councillor Wheeldon, if we added a line in here that said funded through grant revenue, and the reason I ask that is because I think there are grants available for these kinds of things rather than putting it on the levy. And I'll point out that, the traffic calming measures, as an example, are all apportioned based on how much money we're going to get from the province of Ontario. So there's $500,000 or so in traffic calming and public safety measures. Because we've been promised money from the province of Ontario, we'll only be able to spend what we get from the province, but we're sort of crossing our fingers and hoping for $500,000. So is that fair to do that?
Yeah, I would support that. Thank you.
As the seconder? So I've added the line funded through grant revenue to the motion. No other changes. Any further discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Your homelessness task force, who and what representation is on that?
Councillor Wheeldon.
Sure. It was initiated by a motion of the mayor, and the mayor sits on the task force, as does Councillor McCausland and I. Laurie Cowett represents residents. Wayne Jefferson represents the DBIA. Heather Ratz represents the library. And I'm going to forget some people's names, so I'll say organizations. United Church, Christian Reformed Church, Supper's Ready, Food Bank. Who have I missed?
County of Northumberland.
County of Northumberland, Bill Smith, Director of Homelessness Services, really carries most of the conversation, because it's largely about us asking, how does the county work? So another pitch for everyone to show up to the December 11th public training at Trinity St. Andrews United Church, 2:30 to 4 p.m. for anybody who is curious about how the homelessness system works. And what to do if you want to help somebody or if you see someone in need. That's available to everyone to come. Please do come. But yeah, that's the members of the task force. We've also had people drop in, well, not drop in, but we invited some folks. M. Hart is a constable and social worker from the OPP station here that specialize in mental health and addictions. We also had Chris McLeod from Lower Trent Conservation Authority, commenting on what happens when people are found at Proctor Park, which is Conservation Authority land. Have we had any other guests? I'm trying to remember. That's the gist.
Thank you. I was just trying to find the list of people we've asked to join the team, but I think you covered the bases by and large. There's someone else I can see, but I'm not thinking of who it is or who they're attached to. But it may have been Supper's Ready. I think you mentioned Supper's Ready, so it may be Supper's Ready. Any further discussion on the motion? Sure can. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that council amends the mayor's proposed 2026 operating budget as follows. Add an allocation for implementing recommendations of the Brighton Homelessness Task Force of $50,000 funded through grant revenue, and this amendment supports public safety and community well-being. Go ahead.
So not the responsibility of the levy, not from taxes, only if we get grant money.
That's what the motion says.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Anything further? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Are there any other amendments anyone wishes to propose to the budget? Go ahead.
I had an amendment, a motion to pull the cemetery and medical components out of grants and aid and put them into their own solid budget lines. In chatting prior to the meeting, I'm not sure that the medical one will fly at the moment because we're a little unsure of the current TMH commitment that was made last year. So I think I'd want to see an answer to that first.
I think there's generally a movement to want to do that, and we're going to talk to staff about changing that policy generally moving forward. Right now, though, the policy is clear on that all of these things are to be in grants and aid. So if we pull them out, that's fine, but then we should probably pull the funding portion out so that it goes from 1.5% down to whatever that level is from the levy. So just, you know, it's a robbing Peter to pay Paul scenario, that's all. And I'm fine with that, but it's just, we're not freeing up any money. We're just moving line items on a budget.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, my initial thought was to pull them out and create their own budget line and add a little bit to the current budget to get them covered. And then that way we'd be able to not fund everything necessarily on the list, with an eye, more with an eye to keeping some left over for the things that happen during the year as they always do.
Yeah, I think that's the exercise we're going to have to look at when we look at grants and aid, is getting down to that level plus a little extra in order to maintain that. But certainly staff and I have had that conversation about getting rid of those, not getting rid of, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Moving those items, shifting those items that we know we're going to fund year after year.
Yeah.
The hospitals, the cemeteries, because these folks shouldn't be, and they should be applying on some level, but even the cemeteries, they shouldn't be having to go through the hoops of applying for when we know we're going to fund them. We don't want to own them, so we know we're going to fund them at the end of the day. And we also know we're going to fund hospital foundations and those additional resources as well. There are also things on that list, as an example, that, you know, we have a youth initiative fund in the municipality, so we could probably use those funds to help offset some of the youth initiative grant requests. So, you know, that's a conversation council can have and decide whether or not they can wrap their heads around that kind of funding model for those kinds of things. So.
Okay, so do you want me to just hold on to these until we have that
Yeah,
conversation?
until you have the numbers, I think it's a good idea. Like has been said, we have 30 days from the original proposal to make any amendments before the budget is assumed to have been accepted, as I understand the rules.
Okay,
Okay.
and so then we'll be getting that information on TMH, of what was submitted last year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the Trenton Memorial Hospital, my understanding, and the mayor or perhaps the treasurer can correct me if there's something that is not in line with this. They had requested a grant and aid, and I'm not sure the amount. And they withdrew their grant and aid application and came and requested a 5-year pledge. The total pocket for their pledge was $500,000, and it was $100,000 per year, each year for 5 years. So last year we provided them with $100,000, and that 100,000 has been allocated in each subsequent budget as per the pledge that council made last year.
Right. Anything further? Go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
I feel it. I feel the love, Emily.
Councillor Wield, don't get used to it.
I am not averse to the request that we received this evening, adding some support for the road at Willow Point.
I'm gonna ask that we get a legal opinion on this. I think we've had one before. You have a comment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, staff would be content if you wanted to provide direction to come back with a report. We certainly have had lots of conversations about the variety of private roads that the municipality has. And certainly if you're going to look at taking on or repairing or assuming some of these roads, there certainly will be a cost implication. So I think it's important we look at it from a municipal standpoint and provide something to council before you make a decision on that.
And not just one road, obviously. If there's a dozen, we need to be looking at them all. Yeah, to be equitable across the municipality. Fair?
Thank you.
Wait, do you need direction to bring a report? So could I have a motion to direct staff to bring a report with regard to private laneways? We got a third and a fourth or two.
I do recall the request only being that we make sure we can study it, and so with this report probably would not fulfill the requirements of a study. But if we are looking at all 12 of them, does it make sense that we would actually do a study?
That information would probably be included in a report to council.
Excellent.
If staff felt a study was required.
Just to be clear, then we would have no need to add something to the budget tonight if we're waiting on a staff report that would suggest costs moving forward.
I think that's true too.
So I will withdraw my suggestion in favor of your motion.
Very well, thank you. CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and just quickly reviewing the policy as well, there is intended that there is an annual allocation. I'm not sure if the treasurer has been able to get his system up and locate that, but the policy does indicate that there would be an annual allocation of $20,000 and that the grants would be approved up to $5,000. So that is already in there, although, you know, based on the delegation earlier, that amount is certainly not sufficient. So I still think it's important that staff come back with something more comprehensive.
Thank you. Can I ask a question to the CAO then as well? So we'll have to wait for this report before we decide then what could happen with Willow Point or any other road as far as that goes, right? So it won't be in the budget for right now, but is it something that we could consider early in the spring, say maybe we find something?
I'm sure if the report came forward and we found it favorable to help fund such things as this, we would find the monies in reserve to do so.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council directs staff to provide a report with regard to maintenance of private roads / laneways in the municipality. And before I ask for a vote, does that direction sound like what we were talking about to you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? So go ahead.
Maintenance is kind of different than construction, right?
I would suggest that reconstruction and maintenance fall hand in hand with one another.
One's more expensive.
It certainly is. But we maintain roads and we reconstruct roads, and I think staff understand what we're looking for. All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. All right, anything else with regard to amending the budget? Councilor Rowley.
Thank you. You and I talked earlier today, and I have since you've shoved me off onto the CAO because you didn't have good answers on your budget.
So you're nice to Councilor Wheeldon, but not to me. Is that how this is working tonight?
I pick somebody every week.
I just want to know where I stand. That's all. I just want to know where I stand, Councilor.
Meeting, I'll just pick.
You go right ahead. You carry on.
Okay, so had a couple of concerns, as you know, you and I spoke earlier today, and I have since spoken for a few minutes as well with the CAO. So, and because we're not passing this tonight anyway, we have some more time. I would like to, I'm just going to hold my questions back, and I'm going to have a chat with our CAO just to make sure that my numbers align to what we were talking about earlier, based on everything before all of the extra dollars that the 30,000 plus that we're already looking to look into. So I will hold mine back until we have time to have that chat.
Thank you for
To
that
get
information.
clarification. Okay, thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
Thank you, Councilor Rowley. Anyone else while we're on this subject? So, Madam Clerk, for the next meeting, not the next meeting, but for the meeting in December, would you please ensure that a line item under unfinished business is listed that says council amendment to the mayor's proposed budget so that we can continue this conversation at that time? Thank you. Anything further from members of council?
Will that be just a special meeting, or will that just fall within our next, within the
First regular meeting of council,
Okay,
that's
so
December
next week.
1st.
First, yeah, okay. If another meeting is required within the 30 days to complete this, is that an option still as well?
I'll certainly consider it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilor McCausland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I just have a question, a couple actually, maybe just for some clarification, for the cultural service increase in the budget.
For the,
Cultural services increase,
yeah,
it's gone up a lot, but I don't know why compared to. Is there,
me neither off the top of my head.
okay,
Do you know what the figure was and where it's gone to?
If I may, it was at 178 and went up to 203. That's other cultural services. It doesn't say what.
It's the grants and aid budget. So it goes up as the levy goes up automatically. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's a team effort around here. Did you have another question? Okay, so you're good there. Anyone else before I move on in the agenda? That brings us to our confirmatory bylaw. It's moved by Councilor Wheeldon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Special Council meeting held on November 24th, 2025. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. And the motion moved by Councilor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the November 24th, 2025 special council meeting adjourn at 7:54 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing everyone on Wednesday for our planning meeting.